Hello, Nasdaq LinkedIn followers, and thanks for tuning in to join me today on Nasdaq Spotlight. I'm your host, Karen Snow, head of East Coast Listings, and with me today is the one and only Betsy Atkins. Betsy is a serial entrepreneur, three-time CEO, investor, author, and corporate governance expert, just to name a few things, and I'm thrilled to have her with us today at Nasdaq. Betsy, let's start with corporate governance and digital transformation. What is it about, what is it and how do boards oversee it?
So, there's a big set of things that the board oversees. And if you think about the macro trends, what we've seen recently has been diversity and inclusion, gender inclusion. We've seen a lot of focus on digital transformation, oversight of data and privacy, and now the incredible tsunami of ESG, environmental social governance. Those are the kind of big themes boards are facing this year.
Mm-hmm. And are there any specific frameworks that you recommend to boards as they're thinking through some of these issues?
Yeah, there are actually. So, and then there are some emerging frameworks. So if we look at ESG, this is a very big topical one. In ESG, it stands for environmental, social, and governance. So environmental is sustainability, be a good corporate citizen, climate change, all that is under the E. The S is all of the things that are social, which were anti-harassment, inclusion, investing in your people, all of the soft attributes, but you can measure all of these. And then governance is the tone at the top, the culture of the company, is the board independent. So when you think about ESG, which kind of came over from Europe, it used to be called CSR, corporate social responsibility, everybody is searching right now for what is the framework. And actually, I don't know if your audience knows this, but NASDAQ actually has an assessment tool. We used it at Wynn Resorts to actually help us measure and select. There's two pieces of it. First, you pick a reporting agency like MSCI, and then you pick a framework for measuring. It could be SASB or another framework, and then you define what will you measure. So you might measure safety, employee wellness, cyber compliance. There's a whole range of things that fall under the ESG umbrella. But really, everybody now is trying to pick the framework because there are some competing choices out there.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and I feel definitely that companies are feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this and trying to embrace it as quickly as possible. In terms of technologies that boards are actually using themselves, can you talk a little bit about that? Are they walking the walk for communications, governance, and understanding best practices?
So the best known framework that a board is using now is in the cyber domain, and it comes from the NIST, National Institute of Standards body. So NIST created this sort of one-page dashboard, and it's got 22 line items that you're looking at your cyber effectiveness. And you pretty much, you color code it green, yellow, red for each of the 22 items. And it's a standard part of the enterprise risk management framework that the audit committee often does. And so the NIST framework would be presented, and the board would review it and see where they are and what do they need to do to be a little more cyber ready.
Yeah, that's great. So the next big area for boards, I think really is privacy and data protection. Where do you think we are on that journey?
Well, we're catching up with Europe. So we saw GDPR come out of Europe about 2 years ago, and right now it's kicking in, and there are some big fines for companies that aren't compliant. I was just reading one company paid $230 million, another $124 million. So these are big fines, and they're going to get bigger, and they're going to regulate even more. And now we have the California Protection Act, CCPA. And that act is, again, on privacy and data protection. And so basically what it does is it'll go into effect this July. So wake up, everybody out there. You better be ready because they're going to start fining you. And, these regulators, they do like to regulate.
That's all they have to do.
And this is a profit center, so they're going to. It's like the municipal parking people that figured out they could make a lot of money by constantly checking the meter. So it's the same kind of thing. And there, you have the right to get your own, your consumer information, see what it is. You have the right to be forgotten, just like they have that in Europe. You can ask for something to be deleted, and you have the right to not be discriminated against. So if you choose to demand to opt out and not have your third-party data sold, which is the big thing, which happens now, there's the threat that some of these apps would then take you off the app and discriminate. So you have the right to not be discriminated against. And if those are violated, it's $7,500 per incident. So if you're a big consumer company with 1 million consumers and you have a data breach, 7,500 times 1 million,
it'll cost you.
It costs mountain up pretty quickly.
Yeah. Let's go back to ESG for a minute. I think there's some empirical data out now that talks about ESG compliance and what a difference it's making in terms of companies' performance and profitability. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and it's pretty interesting. So if you looked at, McKinsey did a study, and they saw a 19% improvement if you were gender diverse. If that's just your employees. If you were gender diverse with your employees and your exec leadership team, then it went up by another 5%.
Wow. And
if you were gender diverse board, exec leadership team, and employees, they're seeing about a plus 30% improvement. Deloitte had similar data. Bain had similar data. So it's pretty compelling, and it makes sense, right? If you look at all your talent pools, ethnic and gender, and global and generational, if you include all of your talent pools, you're going to get the best decisions and the best ideas.
Mm-hmm. And how are companies managing all this ESG data and what they're reporting? You talked about the cybersecurity, but what are some of the others, and what advice do you have to them?
So there's these two pieces of it. First, the measurement or reporting entity, which is MSCI, and oh my gosh, I got to look at my cheat sheet. Sustainalytics, I think.
Yeah, Sustainalytics.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then for the frameworks, you have SASB and GRI and a bunch of other frameworks. So first you pick who your rating agency is, and then your framework, and then what are you going to measure? Mm-hmm. And the data actually that's been published says the most common and the ones that show the best performance uptick is the combination of MSCI together with SASB. It's about a 6.8% improvement in your profitability, lower volatility, and better access to cash. And what's interesting is all S&P 500 companies have an MSCI rating. They may not even know it. Mm-hmm. And they're probably not even getting credit for a lot of the good things they're doing. So the first thing you ought to do is look up your company and see who are your peers and how do you compare. And then look at the things that are getting measured and see if you're reporting them. Everybody has good HR policies. You might not be getting credit. For example, of course you have an anti-discrimination policy. Of course you have equal pay. Of course you have ethnic inclusion. Of course you have wellness, employee safety, anti-sexual predatory practices. If you're not reporting it, though, you're not getting credit for it. So a lot of it is just collecting the information, communicating it so that the entities that are reporting out will give you the credit for the good things you may already likely be doing.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's super helpful. You're such a treasure of information. We're thrilled to have you with us today. And for those who have not picked up Betsy's book, Be Board Ready, it's a must read for anyone thinking about joining a board or putting one together. So I'm Karen Snow signing off from Nasdaq at MarketSite. Thank you.